Welcome back. You're watching the Press Club. Before the break, we were talking about the ongoing controversy about the appointment of Jade Brown as the Prime Minister's press secretary.
And my memory came back. The lady's name is Christiane Amanpour, CNN top anchor. She didn't go into CNN with a first degree.
Yeah. But I'm an example of somebody who fell into journalism by accident. That was never my intention. It was never a career goal for me. But like you said, she got appointed to the job. Let us wait and see how she performs. As she has said herself, time will tell. Still on that controversy, there's also an issue with the shift from the Prime Minister's press secretary by Jide Jeppe Emmanuel. I'm get confusing the Jades now. To the communications manager, director for the St. Lucia Labour Party. UWP called a press conference this week to discuss the issue. Again, worth the press conference, worth the press's time?
I think the Star front page, which you read, includes my response to that. And the question is, there are 4 pictures here, folks, 4 pictures. Jade, the Prime Minister, and Lionel Ellis.
I'm not sure where he fits in.
And the question is, who would you prefer to watch on TV? Kenny's Angels or UWP mouthpiece Lionel Ellis? That's my answer. I borrowed it from Rick Queen.
There's an interesting story that came out this week. It's also the editorial in the Nationwide newspaper, the official government paper, which you edit, of minors, children, and the law, referencing a statement made by the Home Affairs and National Security Minister Victor Philip Lacobinier outside the House this week in response to questions from reporters about the age of some of the persons facing the courts now. Most recently, a 16-year-old girl appearing before the court on murder charges after allegedly killing a 57-year-old man, I believe of Bagatelle, was it?
Bagatelle.
Yeah. And the minister responded by saying that the issue is there's a discrepancy between the local laws and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which St. Lucia is a signatory to, in terms of how do you treat a minor in a case like that? Do you treat them or try them as an adult, or do you go along with the UN Convention, the definition of what a child is? And the minister was saying that, perhaps we need to send a message to the international community that times are changing. Young people are maturing a lot faster, and perhaps the convention and our laws need to reflect that change in that reality.
Yeah, no, I agree with him on this from the standpoint that, as always, we are very quick to come to conclusions at the beginning, rather than thinking things out and concluding after having given things thought. The discussion, and this is something in which the press, discussion is one which the press is playing an even greater role than is being observed. The lawyer for the young girl takes to the press and starts to outline his case. What his case is going to be. He's going to be looking for bail for her, and then he's outlining that she was charged on a non-capital offense of murder, which can be interpreted to mean a lesser charge for murder. From the standpoint is that a capital offense would, under our books, sentence you to hang. And a lot of issues arise out of that. But in terms of the point the minister is making, there are times when countries, big or small, need to be able to stand up and say that this is what the world is seeing, but this is not what we are seeing. And this is one of those cases, because under the United Nations Convention, a child is defined as anybody 18 and under. But under local law, under local criminal law, a criminal offense can be applied to anyone from age 12.
Right.
Now, it beats me as to why, but there must be a reason, because if you're going to make a law, you know, which says a child at age 12 can be charged with a criminal offense, whether that criminal offense is sticking his or her finger up to his mother or to a priest, you know, or killing somebody. In the situation where people were saying, because she's 16, above 12 and less than 18, that she has to be considered as somebody who is a child and therefore didn't know what she was doing. And then if you listen to the interesting statement by the sister of the deceased, that she sympathizes with the family of the alleged perpetrator from the standpoint is that they have lost a son and brother and father, but the girl's mother has also lost a daughter because, and that's the important part, no mother sends her daughter out to do bad things. And the tendency for us to just, you know, say that young people, you know, don't know what they're doing. There was a suggestion that the young lady probably didn't know what she was doing, you know, so if she's the one who stabbed the guy several times and left him dead in a sitting position, then she probably didn't know what she was doing because she's 16, because she's a minor. And I think that what we got there was that we became victim of a legal argument, you know, the legal theoretical definition between, as you said in your question, the difference between our law and international law. And when the Minister of National Security, who is responsible for law and order in St. Lucia, would say that he thinks there are times when we need to be able to say things as they affect us, because it is truth and fact that a 16-year-old today is not of the same outlook as a 16-year-old when the convention was passed decades ago.
Yeah, but nobody's going to dispute that. He says in the editorial, he says, young persons in the internet age are not at all as innocent and unaware of our wrong and right as might have been felt decades ago. I don't think
because the internet has certainly enlightened.
Nobody's going to dispute that, but does the access to the information necessarily reflect the maturity of the young person? There's a BBC report which I printed out here, carried in March 2013, which I think is relevant. The headline is "Modern Childhood Ends at the Age of 12." Interesting, compared considering what we were discussing, that a child here is liable, criminally liable at 12. Say that again. Modern childhood ends at the age of 12. And it says, childhood is over for many children by the age of 12, according to members of a parenting website. And I'll just go down the article. It says, children no longer want to be seen as children, even when, as parents, we know they still are. The website goes on to ask its members' views and receive thousands of replies. The important point I want to make here is that about a third of these replying to the online response survey suggested that it ended even sooner, perhaps even at 10. And they made the same point about the access to the internet. Parents voice concerns that children are being put under pressure to act older than their years. And that pressure is coming from a number of different places. But does the pressure now, and response to the pressure, necessarily make them more mature, more mentally developed?
It does, because they're facing pressures that their peers decades ago never had to face. They have on the iPad or the phone or the whatever, there are, I mean, they can access hundreds of programs, hundreds of different sources of information. They could follow anything, they could find out anything about anybody, they could do anything. Somebody hacked the Prime Minister's Facebook account, use his picture and so on. Nobody knows whether it is an adult or a child. In the modern age today, a 13-year-old in Britain was arrested by the FBI and Scotland Yard for having hacked the computer of the State Department and the Defense Department. And his mother, you know, was none the wiser. She said, listen, my son doesn't leave his room. You know, he doesn't, he's just at his computer all day long. He's innocent. So I think the article is agreeing that the influence of the internet, because just by having to choose to respond to the forces of pressure from the different points, you need a more active mind to be able to prove. And look,
some of them might not feel that they have a choice. You talk about choosing. Some of them may not feel that they have a choice. It's either we go along with the peer pressure, with the influence that we exposed to at school or wherever, or risk being ostracized.
They have the choice at their fingers, at their fingertips. With the phone, they could choose to use the phone for education. Yeah,
because you're assuming that everybody has the access. Perhaps what I'm suggesting to you is that perhaps the influence is coming from others who may have the access, who are exerting influence on those who perhaps don't.
So I'm keeping up with the Joneses.
I think there are more issues at play here, you know, than just
there are. But do you agree? Do you? I mean, we may disagree on the reason. Or maybe you do not agree, but what is your position? Do you agree that children today are more open, brighter, and therefore more mature in their ability to decide, to choose between right and wrong?
Let's use your granddaughter as an example.
Okay.
I mean, I've had
my advisor, my IT advisor.
That's where I was going, because I mean, I've had the opportunity of meeting her, and I have been blown away by her. She's, you know, far more intelligent than I anticipated. I mean, you've come here and you've spoken about her on the show, her ability to maneuver the technology that you have difficulty with. You know, so we're not saying that it's not true. I mean, the internet age has changed so many things, revolutionized a lot of things. Children are exposed to a lot more information than previously. But what I'm saying is, the ability to decipher and to use that information. And
maybe what we have is a difference in the interpretation of maturity.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I don't see maturity within the strict confines of an adult definition. In the case of young persons, like there's a reason why the article you read from 3 years ago, they're saying that childhood ends at 12, and some are saying earlier than that. When you're assessing children, I think the maturity, we have to be careful we don't measure a child's maturity with the same yardstick as ours. So in the case of my granddaughter, I see every day her maturity in her ability to respond to things coming out in the news, in her ability to take positions that I couldn't even dream of about politics locally, you know, to be responding to discussions between adults. Like last night we were in a discussion, in an adult discussion. She happened to be there, and I said something about her, and she interjected to tell me I'm taking a joke too far.
I'm not surprised.
You know, and everybody else was like, hey, what did she just say? I say, yeah, you all heard her. She said, and she repeated it, he's taking his jokes too far. And then she went back into her iPad, you know. So her ability to be in the iPad and to be listening to the conversation at the same time.
Yeah, she's also a female, yeah? So she's also a female.
Well, that part
so she can multitask.
Yes.
We have difficulty with that, but let me draw attention to a quote.
I was reading something to an elder friend, a little thing. He said that females, ladies don't have to work as hard as men because they can multitask, and from the very beginning.
Yeah. It's scientifically proven. So I want to draw your attention to a quote from another article from the Daily Mail. I don't remember when.
On the same issue?
Yeah. Most children will pester their parents and demand the latest gadgets, but it's important to also take into account whether or not they're ready for what they might encounter, and if they do start using this sort of technology, to make sure they are safe online. Because I think about 77%, according to statistics, 77% of young people use the internet unsupervised. The study also revealed that 40% of parents find it annoying that celebrities and friends have more influence over their children than they do. Another issue. Tony Neat, CEO of Get Safe Online, says children of today are part of a digital generation. They just do not know any different than to use technology and the internet. However, whilst it may be second nature, it's important that young people understand the risks and the boundaries they should observe. And that's my issue, that they may not have access.
Where's that study done?
In the UK.
In UK. Okay.
They have access, but do they understand?
Yeah, I'm saying these issues also apply here. And I don't think any of us should fool ourselves into thinking that we can know everything that our child or grandchild accesses on a phone we give them with access to the internet. What I try to do is to all my children have done that to them. It said, listen, here's the technology, but use it for education as well. Look for things you can learn from. So I do know that my granddaughter does, because she comes to show me, oh, look at this, I didn't know that, etc., etc. So I think if the most we can with them engage in the process of encouraging them to discover educational sites. If we find the things they like, in the case of my granddaughter, she's close to nature. So things like National Geographic, Earth Planet, Planet Earth, whatever, she knows all of them. And every now and then she'd come and say, you know, look at this new type of animal that was discovered. Look at this, look at that. Each child has the things that they like. And if we as the parents who are aware and concerned about what they're doing with their tablets and their phones, if we as parents, we ought to know what are the things they like most.
Yeah, but you see, my point, and the point that's being made in the article, is that while that might be true for now, and in your granddaughter's case, what about the other child who goes to school and the parents and the peers are into porn and video games and violence, and they make her feel like she's weird because she's into science and education and developing her brain, you know, and she wants to fit in, you know, so she succumbs to the influence, because children spend a lot more time away from us than they do with us.
That underlines my point even more, because it's peer pressure which the parent and other like-minded persons are not there to shield him or her from. So they're coming home as victims of that peer pressure, which they don't want you to know. So they ain't going to do it at home in your presence, but certainly in the bedroom alone, on the chair outside alone, with them facing the door, they could be doing it without you knowing. So I'm saying there will be traces. You know, you start to see the child hiding to watch the that that he or she used to be just sitting at the table watching, or sitting in the chair. You know, they're looking at something that they don't want you to see. So that I think even the parents who might not be aware, even be aware, because they're keeping up with the Joneses. You know, the child say everybody have a phone, so she want one too, so I have to give her or him one too. We need to be able also to target them. You know, so the process of learning is not just for the child, but it's also for the parents. Educating the parents as to the importance of also trying to understand, yes, we will never catch up with them insofar as how good they are on it, but if we can discuss it with them and influence them in a certain direction, then there can be the mutual satisfaction that you could invite them every now and then to come and show you a few things.
Yeah, but we do for a break. But before we go for the break, I just want to point out that while our discussion has focused a lot on the internet based on the minister's statement, a very important point was made. We don't know what the relationship between this gentleman and the young lady was. We don't know what difficulties or challenges or hardships she was going through, what her mental state was. But it highlights the importance, I think, that you touched on, of parents having a close enough relationship or good enough relationship with their children, male or female, to recognize the differences, the changes in behavior, and to be aware of what's going on in their children's lives, you know, so that even when, you know, things like that happen, or possibly you might be able to intervene and prevent an incident like that, you know. But we're due for a break. We'll take the break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. You're watching The Press Club.